Today on Beyond the Wrench, we're talking with an educator who's making a real impact on how the next generation discovers careers in collision repair. Our guest is Jessica Weaver, an auto body collision technology instructor at Dakota County Technical College in Minnesota. We recently shared Jessica's story on WrenchWay, highlighting how she used School Assist to connect with a local high school and bring real world collision repair into the classroom. What started as a simple request from another instructor turned into an opportunity to show students what this career can truly look like through hands on demonstrations, honest conversations, and a clear pathway from education to industry. We're going to talk about that and a bunch of other things. I think we're going to probably solve all of the world's problems today. Jessica, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for joining me. As Jessica and I talked about before we hit record, we're all in a Arctic breeze right now. She's in Minnesota, we're in Wisconsin, and I think we compared temps. We're right around the negative 17 mark. I want to say right now, 16, somewhere in that. At that point, it doesn't matter.
Oh, the wind chill gets you. I think my phone said negative 22 with the wind chill right now. So,
Oh, why did our ancestors come here like that? That seems in the middle of winter. That seems it's aggressively cold.
yeah, you go outside and you go, oh, why does it hurt?
And you did something interesting with your children today. You to kind of explore the cold.
Yeah, the thing where you take the boiling water outside and throw it, and it went over as good as it should have with the video games that they have nowadays. They walked out and they were really excited. I was like, we're gonna do this cool thing, and I amped them up, and they looked at it and went, wow.
Can we come back in?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was cool, but doesn't compare to all the flashing lights on your screen. So
As a parent of an 8, almost 9-year old, I get that that feedback, disappointment from my son at times where I think something's really cool, and then I'll share that with him, and he'll just kind of doesn't roll his eyes, but the unintentional sarcasm in his voice when he says, "Oh, that is cool," and then walks away and never brings it up again. You're like, I felt like it was a little cooler than that, but apparently not. I think I've gotten past that cool stage a long time ago.
yeah, my kid at my youngest, he's 5, he asked me this morning, what's your favorite movie? Let's watch your favorite movie. And the first one that popped in my head was The Labyrinth, the one with David Bowie in there. And he stared at that screen like this, just horror the whole time. And at the end of it, I was like, did you like it? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever the pause comes into play, then you're like, hey, I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I don't, I tried.
You tried. Well, you're doing even doing that experiment this morning. Pretty cool of you to do, and I think it's one of those things where maybe your kids will look back someday and be like, that was actually pretty cool. I think that we've all done that with our parents too, where they've done something that at the time probably didn't seem all that cool or memorable, but then you look back many years later and say, yeah, that was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let's talk about your journey into the industry. I talked about it in the intro. I love your background and how you got here and to the point to where we're talking today. Uh, your education style, as we talked in our pre-meeting, was I just get the sense that you're really easy to relate to with kids and with young people in general. I think that goes such a long way in getting their attention long enough to be able to teach them something. So that personality side, I think, really stuck out to me early on. But I do want to talk about the rising of you and really how you got into this career field. Did you start off wanting to do collision, or when did that really kind of click with you that this was something that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, when I was in high school, it was so my dad, God love him, a little accident prone. And so when I was growing up, I remember him calling me and being like, you got to come pick me up, or you got to take me to the emergency room or to the doctor. And The one that sticks out a lot was the anesthesia. He tried to chop his finger off. I say that, he'd say different, maybe. But he took a bandsaw to the finger and it went whoop right across and
Oh,
sew him up. And I don't know if they allow it anymore, but they allowed me to stay in there and watch the whole thing. And so I watched them put the nerve block in, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. I was like, I want to do the nerve blocks. I want to be that guy. My dad thought it was great. My mom thought that was awesome. Doctor in the family. And then I crashed my car, and my dad and I had an agreement. He funded my money for the car, and he goes, "You break it, you fix it." And so, 16-year-old me was going, oil changes and tires, and that's not a big deal. And then I crashed it into a tree, and he went, "Fix it." And I went, "What?" And it was a 1987 Thunderbird that I crashed into a tree, rear wheel drive, they're heavy. And I put it right in the ditch in the middle of winter. I had no business driving that thing in the winter, but I did. And I pulled it into the garage. I remember doing the most horrible body work you've ever seen with no guidance. And I was like, "Ooh, this is really fun." And so I took an autos class, and my autos teacher, I had showed up in a skirt, and he was like, "You can't wear that." And I was like, "Okay." And then started answering questions. I remember him saying, "What is the opposite of exhaust?" And I went, what did I say? I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't into. And he goes, "You're nothing but a stupid girl." And I go, "Oh, you're gonna change that for me, right?" And he had that wow moment for a second. And I'll never forget the look on his face when I shot back at him. And from there, I started doing body work, and I corrected a little bit of my really bad body work as I went into college. And actually, the guy that taught me body work in college, he called me up over the years, and his name's Scott Logan, wonderful man. He's like, "Hey, I think there's something to you teaching. You should teach for me in 10 years when I retire." And when you're in your mid 20s, 10 years is a long time. And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And then 5 years later, he's like, "Hey, come substitute for me." So I did a little subbing here and there. And when he finally retired, finally, after 10 years, that seems like a long time. It went by quick, but I ended up interviewing, getting the job, and now I'm working with the person that taught me my second year of college, and getting to know him as an instructor and then now as my partner is amazing. And he has been one of the best people I could have ever asked to train me to do this job.
I want to call something out there that you said that I think says so much about you as a person, which was when the teacher comes to you and says, "You're nothing but a stupid girl." And you say, "Well, you're going to change that." Right. And
Yep.
almost like with I'm sure with some level of sarcasm, or like just in general, I just love that response, because how many people, not only females, like we see this all the time across our industry, but how many people would have just folded then, right? And just said, "Yeah, this isn't for me." But your approach in almost like not laughing it off, but just being like, "Well, you're going to change that," right? Like when you said that, I was just like, what a cool way to approach that. Like, in very witty on your end.
Oh, I try to be. I'm not always, but like I had another guy when I was probably mid 20s ish, and I was training in the field. I worked for a jobber company called Blue Rock, and I like to say they helped form me and a lot of my ideals. My boss had a lot of really great sayings when I worked there, that I stick with me today. But I remember I had a painter, and I was probably 24, 25, and I was supposed to train him on this new product, and he had 40 years in the business. And I was kind of guiding him not the way he wanted to. And he goes, "I've spilt more paint on my boots than you've ever put on a car." And I go, "Oh, let's teach you waste management then." He didn't like it. It was it was really quick, and he goes, "I need to talk to your boss." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I called him, and he goes, "Conveniently, I'm in the parking lot." And they talked it out. It ended up being it was fine. That guy apologized probably 2 weeks later and said, actually, I think I can learn from you. And we ended up being really good friends thereafter. But it was one of those moments where I was like, is today the day I'm getting fired?
But I think it's an important lesson there, in that there's a fine line where I think when you're a young person coming into this industry, you're trying to find your way, and at some level it can be easy to be pushed over and just constantly, like, you have that experienced tech that's just going to say, go away, I don't want to deal with you. But then at the same time, you have to hold your own. But then also, if you hold your own, then you might be perceived as, they don't listen, they're not listening to what I'm saying. And so, I think what you were able to do there is walk that line maybe with some confidence, and be able to have kind of a witty rebuttal where, again, I think a lot of young people will take that and kind of put their head down and walk out the door, right? Where you
And that's just
anger, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions tied to that, for a young person coming into this industry, let alone being a female coming into the industry. Like, there's just, when I look at that, I'm like, you should almost write a playbook of comebacks, because apparently you're filled with all kinds of them. That those are the,
I got to roll it on.
but it is important for any young person that's listening to this to kind of keep that in mind, that you have to be mindful that there is this fine line, but you also don't want to be a pushover. You don't want to be perceived as a know-it-all, and being able to kind of walk that line. And if you can do that, you're going to get a lot further, a lot faster. I feel like, maybe
Yeah.
I'm overstating that, but I do feel like there's an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I learned very early on, because I've gotten yelled at. And it's like, when you get yelled at, it's really disheartening, and you walk away with your head down, yeah. But I learned that a good approach to somebody that does know what they're talking about, and you're coming in as a young person into the field, I learned you're not supposed to go, hey, you're doing that wrong. They don't like that. I learned ways to make my ideas theirs and be like, hey, can you tell me what you're doing? And they'd walk me through it and be like, I'm just coming up with this now. It wasn't pre-planned. But have you ever tried doing it this way? And we'll talk it through and make it more of a conversation, instead of telling somebody you're doing it wrong. I've learned that doing it wrong is the way we learn to do it right in the first place. And so, making things people's ideas, that's a really good way to help those people that don't like being told what to do. It applies with students sometimes too, because I do have some of those students that'll be like, no, that'll never work. And I'll go, really? Okay. But moving them in that direction, with kindness, there's that age-old saying, you get more bees with honey. And
Yeah.
so I try to teach with kindness. And one of my sayings at school is, fail. We learn more from failure than we learn from getting it right the first time. My students are probably sick of hearing me say, you didn't learn to walk the first time you tried. You fell down, you made that mistake, but then you tried again. So when they're coming back to me going, I can't do it, and I go, how many times did you try? It's one. Okay, maybe one more.
Well, I think you hear that commonly in shops too, the frustration with a young person trying it once, it didn't work, and really maybe the lack of thinking through what might fix that is a challenge that shops have. And I applaud you for pushing your students to kind of think through it a little bit more, because I do think there are times too with a young tech where you can easily get in the trap of, anytime something starts to go wrong, you're immediately going and asking somebody. And I think that is when it becomes an annoyance for that experienced tech that's in the shop, if they're, oh my gosh, this person, they're not even trying. Like they're making a half-hearted attempt at being able to fix this, and now they're pulling me away from what's making me a living to be able to help them. I think when it's good questions that you're going to that experienced tech with, or your manager or whoever, then it doesn't seem like an annoyance. You've tried maybe several different things and you're trying to approach them and say, hey, I've tried this, and this didn't work. I feel like I'm making progress. If you can go to that person with good questions rather than just kind of putting some effort into it and then saying, I can't do it, and then going off, I think that's when the others in the shop get frustrated.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that one. So I mentioned Blue Rock where I used to work before. Well, Bruce had this saying, I told you, he had a lot of them, and one of my favorites, and I tell my students is, we solve problems. So that's kind of his motto over there. But I took that from Bruce, and it was, I don't want to hear your problems. I want to hear your solutions. And so when I'm training my students, I say, don't go to your boss, don't go to your mentor with problems. Come to them with solutions to your problems. So where you can say, here's the problem I'm facing, and here's how I tried to fix it. Here's how I think I'm supposed to. And give them some ideas, give your boss guidance so that you're not, because anybody can present a problem. It takes a really talented person to present solutions to their problems and gets them thinking. So I love going to my students and I ask them their questions back every time. So they'll be like, what grit am I supposed to use right now? And I go, I don't know. What grit are you supposed to use? And they'll answer, and I'll like guide them, maybe a different higher grit, lower grit, and until this happened yesterday with one student. He's like, what grit do you want me to use? And I go, what do you think you should use? And he goes, 80. And I go, maybe higher. 180,
A little too aggressive there. Yeah.
a little more. And he'll go like 220. And I go, perfect. I knew you'd get there. it when I guide with humor, I think it sticks a little bit better,
Oh, for
but
sure.
and when they get to answer their own questions and be a part of their own solutions, that helps a lot.
Well, you're helping kind of build some confidence and help them when they do get to where they're working professionally, that they can answer some of those simple questions themselves, or maybe they can go find some resource. There's more resources now available to be able to look up technical data, for example, than there ever had been when we were growing up. And so I think there are resources out there. I think the other element to this, and I'm kind of almost segueing that into shop life, is that a lot of times I feel like a lot of kids will put undue pressure on themselves to get a job done in a certain amount of time. I do put some blame on industry a little bit there, but I remember feeling that as a young technician, where I went from tech school into a shop, and you hear a lot about pay plans and how you need to be turning time and that kind of thing. And then ultimately, when you get in there, you're probably, in my experience anyways, I was almost more focused on that part than I was the quality of the repair. And looking back, I'm like, I just wish I would have taken a little bit more time to do it the right way or understand it the right way in order to truly understand it. Because I do think there's that flipping of the switch effect, where when it clicks, all of a sudden the next time you do it, it is going to be better. And if you're just trying to beat time as a young tech, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not truly understanding the fundamentals of doing the job itself.
Right. That's kind of something I'm fighting right now with a couple of my students. I think it's great where I have two right now that told me, am I failing because it took me, a week and a half to fix this 9-hour dent that you gave me. And I give them real world dents. I'm not saying like if this takes if I would give this when I'm estimating in a shop 9 hours, that's what I do in the shop too. So I'm not sugarcoating anything, but it will take them a long time. They have 255 hours through the semester to do 80 hours between paint and body. So 40 hours of paint, 40 hours of body work. And when they're like, I mean, I've been working on this for days. Do I have enough time? And I go, oh, you have plenty of time. And not everybody will get all of those hours. But we focus on quality over quantity. And I'll sugarcoat some of those hours if they've really put an effort in and worked hard for that quality versus that quantity, because I'm not trying to be known for the teacher that turns out students that go, good enough, give me your blessing. Like, and when they say to me, is it good enough? I say, well, anytime you have to ask me good enough, we know it's not.
Oh, I love that part too. I think a lot of managers listening to this could also say the same thing. Is this good enough to ship? If you have to ask that question, you probably already know the answer.
You just want to make it my problem. No, it's not great.
If you're an automotive, diesel, or collision instructor, or an educator helping students explore these careers, this is for you. Building relationships with local shops takes time, and knowing who's willing to help isn't always clear. ASE Connects, in partnership with WrenchWay, brings schools and industry together on one easy online platform at no cost for schools. At the heart of ASE Connects is School Assist, the online resource that lets you post exactly what your program needs. From guest speakers, shop tours, tools, advisory committee members, career fair participants, and even student job opportunities, shops can see your requests and respond directly to you. You'll also get access to instructor-focused resources, webinars, and templates designed to save time and strengthen industry partnerships. Even if your school doesn't have a formal auto or diesel program, you can still participate to help connect interested students with real-world opportunities. ASE Connects is free for schools. Get started at wrenchway.com/solutions/schools or use the link in the show notes. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of curriculum. I know, as we talked before, you had gone through and kind of completely redid your curriculum, and we talked through the amount of time that takes and how labor intensive that side is. Walk me through that piece of like what drives your curriculum, what drove maybe you to want to change your curriculum. I know that's a broad question, but I do want to walk through that piece a little bit.
Well, I mean, it took me almost 3 years to get my other curriculum down the way that I wanted it. And I went to this training that we do with teachers in the summer. It's called MTTIA. It's a Midwest thing where teachers get together from all over the place and we learn. And a man named Justin with iCar came in and he was like, I got the world's solutions. Well, I struggled with it a little bit because I had my own curriculum, and it's kind of
baby.
Yeah, and when somebody comes in and says, I got the solution to all your problems, you're like, And so I fought it a little bit, but this iCar curriculum there is something to it. There is really good information in there. And so I ended up not ditching all of my old, but kind of going through and seeing where I could marry the two and make them make sense.
So we talk about curriculum, and so much of it, I think, is focused on the actual development of coming up with the actual content that you're going to put out to the students. How much of it is the preparation side of like understanding the curriculum that you're about to teach and being able, like with the shift to the iCar curriculum or the elements of that, like truly understanding that piece and then really being able to smoothly articulate that to your students?
So I would say years. I mean, you don't get to just be a teacher by reading a book, right? I was in the industry for 18 years before I took this job, and painting cars and doing body work, estimating, all of this stuff in between. And So you kind of have to know how to get there anyways and be able to debut those skills off to students. But then doing the curriculum part, it was years of reading through. I've got 4 books that I took from all these different makers and experts in the field writing through these books. And I took that deep dive into why it happens, how it happens, so that I can articulate to my students the hows, because not everybody learns the same, right? So I would say years of reading and actually applying it before even taking this job. It's a lot of extra time, but now that I've kind of got everything built, even just jumping into the iCar side of it, I've already got all the information there. So realistically, what I do with them is they have their academy, and I put their slideshows on mute, and I have all of my students follow along with me on their own computers so that they can get the credit for it. We answer the questions together, and when it's on mute, they've already told me, you talk way more than what the videos do. But I'm taking that deeper dive, and with all the learning styles that we have in there, it can't just be that little bit of information, because I'm trying to articulate to this type of learner and that one over there and make sure that everybody understands at the end of it. And at the end of each slide, I give them the opportunity to say, did anything confuse you? How can I clear this up for you? And if everybody's on the same page and they can answer those questions, I'll maybe ask my own questions to make sure they're not getting lost or distracted by the guy sitting next to them.
Yeah.
So it does take, in videos that might take them 10, 15 minutes on their own are taking me an hour to an hour and a half to get through and just deeper dive into all of those things.
Oh my goodness. You talk about meeting a student where they're at in terms of their learning style. And I think I shared with you, I've had that experience on the student end when I was coming up, that there were a lot of teachers that I couldn't relate to, and a lot of teachers were very rigid in the way they taught, and you had to follow kind of their laws of how they taught. It wasn't until much later in life when I was taking, I was a factory rep for a construction equipment company, and they had a teacher that was teaching, that they had hired to teach advanced diagnostics. And I don't know what it was about this teacher, but his teaching style just like clicked with me. And some of the stuff that seemed so hard in the past just like all of a sudden connected. And I was like, I think I saw the power of communication and good communication with an educator through that in my own experience, and the power of being able to meet a student where they're at can make all the difference in their life. I mean, that is so impactful for you to kind of hunt that out and look for those different ways to maybe make something work with a student.
Yeah, it's important. I think along, like, back when I was learning or whatever, it was you learn what I teach you. But now my approach to it is I'm being paid to teach you. I'm also being paid to assess you. So if with all the different learning styles that I'm attacking over there, if you're not getting it, it's on you, because I'll come into some students and I'll verbalize it with them and say, all right, we're going to imagine this together. And I have those students that are very imaginative that can like build that in their head, and they're going to go, okay, I got it. And then if that doesn't work, I'll go, okay, we're going to do this together. You have those monkey see, monkey do. I get to be monkey do, and you get to be monkey see. And we'll do that. And then I have the other ones that need play to learn. I just did this yesterday with a student. He's like, I hate guide coat. Hate it, won't use it. And I go, oh, you have to use that, because he also can't feel the wobbles in there. And so he's like, I don't understand how it works. It makes no sense to me. So I went out over and grabbed what I call the sandbox. It's full of sandblasting media. And I laid that out flat, and I pulled up little mounds on there, and then I have 2 different sandblasting medias, one in tan and one in black. So I sprinkled the tan stuff over the top of the black, and we started playing in that media together and leveling off the top and talking it through, and how that guide coat is helping you see those high and low spots. And I watched him go, oh, okay. And then he ran off to go play with his hood that he was sanding on. You just kind of have to understand your student and who you're talking to. And same with, I had another student this in the same day. We're talking about colors and how they lay out and the metallics. He's like, well, why is this one darker than this one when they're the same color? And so we grabbed out a handful of quarters and we were throwing them on the ground and then throwing some rocks down and showing how when you lay up those quarters on different angles, and it's really fun to see the kids that actually play to learn, to come back and they light up and they go, okay, I got it. No, go away. So I got it now. And that's fun.
How did you get that ability? I mean, is that something that comes naturally for you where you are really showing those visuals in a way to make that click? Because I do think that it would be so helpful for so many people, even experienced people in our field, to get visuals of why something works, or maybe just trying to get something to make that connection in a brain that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Is that something that you felt comes natural to you, or was that something you had to learn?
I think maybe both. I think because there's moments where I'll be like trying to explain something. I'm like, oh, this isn't working. They're in the same boat. They're going, it's not working the way that I'm talking it through. And then I have to sit down and be like, okay, give me a minute to just figure out how I can show you with things that we have around here. And it may take a little time sometimes, but I think I learned that from actually a 3M rep he made a play thing at one of my trainings where he was talking about adhesives versus welding and fusion in metal. He took little post-it notes and staples and he did the adhesive sides of those post-it notes together. And so we were pulling those apart. And then when you do adhesives with spot welds, and so he put staples in there and was just showing the different strengths. And
oh, that's a great idea.
And oh, it was amazing. And now I stole it. Just if he ever sees it, I did it. I stole it.
Well, I think that's a form of flattery, right? If you're taking something from him, yeah.
But I found that it helped me with. I mean, I understood it before, but it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, this is a really good way to put play into our learning styles. And so after that clicking moment for me is we need to play more. The students need to touch things to be able to learn this sometimes, especially with those play-based learners. Even at 18 and 25, and I have some students that were in their 60s last year, and
I was going to say 42.
And play-based learners. Like I said, I got these little kids running around downstairs, and they're play-based learners too. And so I think maybe that helped the intuitiveness of let's get you guys touching and feeling, and maybe comparing something that isn't what we're doing to something that is, just like the post-it notes or playing in the sand. Sand isn't metal, but there's kind of that same movement.
You hit on a point there that I think a lot of people could learn from, myself included, on the power of just taking a step back and thinking about that communication style or strategy, because I think I'm this way. I know a lot of other people are, that when you communicate something and they're not understanding it, you're kind of almost putting it on their shoulders of like, why aren't you understanding this? Why can't you understand? And for me, I'm very much a visionary type of person. So to get what's out of my head and try to get it to an understandable level to the other person can be challenging at times. And for me, I think one of my challenges is that I'm always rushing. I'm always like running and running and running and going to the next thing, going to the next thing. And the power in just being able to take a step back, and even if it's your own problem, and analyze the problem and kind of try to truly understand where the problem lies in something like communication, is really powerful. And so I love the approach that you have there of taking that step back and then trying to really figure out a different way of going about it. And rather than pin the blame on the other person, you almost kind of take that on your own shoulders of how can I communicate this better in a way that they're going to understand. I just absolutely love the way you approach that.
Yep, that's that whole problem and solution thing. I can present anybody with a problem. Let's solve it, because if as soon as you're saying it's your problem, you're not understanding me. Nope, I'm going to come up with that solution.
Mm. This is good stuff. I'm learning all kinds of stuff here. That's you're one heck of an educator. Now, it's funny because the way that I got to know you was because we had done our marketing team had done a story on you going and talking to a high school.
Yep.
And the first time I read it, I was like, how cool is it that somebody from the technical school would want to get involved with the high school in a way that's helping the high school educator. I think it helps grow that relationship between the high school and the tech school. I'm a huge believer in that we need to do more of that. But when you go and you're talking to probably younger students than you're like, it's not much of a age difference, but there is a little bit of an age difference there.
Well, it's very small.
Yeah, very, very small. Yeah. A couple of years, a year. But it I think is really impactful for the tech school because you get exposure to your program. It's very impactful for the high school because you help get some education that you might be more specialized on than they are, or it's just a different voice coming in the room at times. I think that's helpful in general. But what drove you to want to have that conversation in the first place? Because be honest, there's not a lot of folks in the tech ed side or the technical education, tech college side that are coming into a tech ed program and doing that. And I'm like, I think we're missing a huge opportunity here by not doing more of that.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding, you're asking like why
That's a
did
terrible
I
question.
do what I did?
Yeah.
Why I did what I did? Did I get it?
Yeah.
So I am a firm believer in asking for everything. And I do, because if you don't ask, the answer's already no. So like I can be like, hey Jay, can I have $10? If I don't ask you, the answer's already no. So going into WrenchWay, I'm asking for everything. But here's the thing, if everybody's only asking, there's no one to give it back. So when you like, I'm going, hey, I'm asking for all this stuff, I'm going to have to give back too, in one way. And so when I saw his post saying, hey, I need a female in the industry, coming in and talking to some of my young women, seeing if we can get some of that interest going, or even what was your experience in there? I was like, well, I fit the bill. I'm not an industry partner anymore, but a teacher. Would you like me to do this? He's like, yes, absolutely. So being able to give when I ask for everything, I ask for so much. I'll give back too as much as I can.
That asking part though, I think is also very important. You mentioned asking for everything. I think a lot of educators are afraid to do that, right? Where they are afraid to lean on their industry partners unless they're in a state of absolute desperation. And I think it really hurts a lot of programs by that instructor not asking for things, right? Because if it is, I go to a lot of advisory committee meetings, and some of them can have some fluff, right? Where they're maybe not talking about the true maybe issues of the school, or they're, just trying to kind of go through curriculum, show the stats, and then you eat lunch and you're done. And at times it kind of feels like you're almost in like a Groundhog Day type of scenario where you're kind of going to the same meeting over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
The most effective ones, and I was just at one not too long ago where it truly was conversations about what the school needed. And I think in a lot of ways, the instructors need to feel safe enough to be able to ask for the things. I don't know that everybody has that inherent ability that you do to just ask for things. And when they do that, they're really, I think, punishing the program by not asking for those things. And really, even with WrenchWay, that was a big reason we did the school assist thing, was that a lot of the teacher feedback we got was that anytime they needed anything, they felt like they were having to cold call their Excel spreadsheet list of all of the shops that were on their advisory committee. And we're like, it should be easier than that. There needs to be a more streamlined process to this. And so your approach there of not being afraid to ask, I think is really impactful to your school, to your program, because you are bringing additional resources to the program that are going to help. And in our experience, there are so many shops that want to help out. They just aren't good at being able to drive that communication. You've done it as good as anybody. So I wanted to give you a compliment there, but then also talk a little bit about the power of asking, because I think you're unique in that regard.
Well, if it's kind of like if you don't know I need that $10, we'll talk later. No. But, but if you don't know that I have a need, you're not going to just offer it, right? So when we do our advisory meetings, I find them very fun. We talk, it's very friendly, and our advisory board is just an amazing group of people. We go in and we discuss, it can't be just that rose it over where you're saying how great everything is. Our advisory board relies on us to turn out their future technicians, right? So they're coming in and going, what are the needs here? What are we seeing? So we ask them, what are you seeing out of our students? What do we need to do better for you? And when it gets that conversation's going, so when they say, well, just this is a hypothetical, it's not a real world, but if they were to say, hey, your students aren't welding well, they're just not, we can say, okay, how can we as a group fix this problem? And so my advisory board, I can say, can we have students come out and talk to some of your technicians? Can your technicians come in? Or we don't have enough welders, or our welders are breaking down, so we're not using real world situations over here. One of the things that we've done recently was we just got an ADAS calibration system.
Nice.
And so it's brand new to us. We don't know how to use it yet, right? And so we're sitting there talking. We're like, great. And it was actually donated to us by some of our advisory members, this system. And so now we're like, okay, now we need to be trained. The students need to be trained. And we asked them, okay, great. Thank you for helping us acquire this piece of equipment. Who can train us? And they're like, okay, they gave us a list of contacts. And so then when I do the recap and send out an email saying, this is what we talked about, by the way, you did say there was some contacts that you had. Can anybody send those back over to us that we can reach out and do field trips? And so I think there is an etiquette in how you ask. It's not just, this is what our needs are, but saying, what do you need? So then how can we work together so that everybody's needs are actually met?
I can always tell when somebody's got a strong advisory committee versus when they don't. And I think a lot of it is in conversation with the shop that's out there. And, I had heard a lot over the course of my career, well, I won't hire anybody from that tech school because they've only turned out bad students. And I'm like, you're putting every person that comes out of that program into one bucket. One, you shouldn't do that. But then two, that just tells me you are so disconnected from the school that you don't know what their problems are. You're not willing to help. You're putting all of the expectation on the school alone, which in my eyes is completely unfair. And I think when you see a strong advisory committee or just strong industry partnerships in general, where you have people that are willing to come help out and are willing to put, time into going and doing a Skills USA event or doing something that might be outside of the typical ask of the school, I think doing exactly the same thing you were talking about is what these shops need to learn as well, which is you're going to ask for a lot. As a shop, I'm going to ask for quality students coming out of that program. And we do want them to be as productive as they can, as soon as they can. But I also am going to offer a lot of stuff to you and try to make your life better. And that's what a good partnership looks like, right? If I'm going to make your life easier and you're going to make my life easier, that's when those conversations do get fun and they do get a lot more transparent. But if, as industry, you go into that meeting and you're just pointing at the school for all their shortcomings, and or vice versa, if the school's looking at industry and saying, you guys aren't helping us out at all, I think there's a lot of value in looking in the mirror and saying, okay, what can we do different in our approach here to maybe, if from the school's end, get more support, or from industry's end, how do we give more support to the school? Because ultimately that's going to end up with us having a better relationship with the school, which will then end up with more students in our shop. So I just, from afar, that's one of the things, I'll get off my soapbox here, but that's one of those things that are, it is really, maybe I'm looking at it too high level here, but every single advisory committee meeting I've been to, the great ones are awesome. The bad ones are pretty bad. And there's like trying to get everybody in a room rowing in the same direction, having the same goals in mind, and really wanting to support each other. It just makes business more fun. It makes partnerships more fun when everybody's kind of trying to make the situation better.
Yep. I mean, everybody out there is not doing this for their health. They're
Right.
we're trying to make money. And so at the top side of it, those shop earners, they're going to make more money if we're turning out quality students. They're going to put their name on all of their repairs. I have to put my name on all of my students. So we want everything that comes around goes right back around. We have alumni and alumna that come back into the school and they talk, because I think we start to see that full circle come back around to make this work. I mean, everybody in my area is just so helpful. I've not actually been told no yet. So I'm very, very thankful for everybody that I am working with, all of my industry partners, because I haven't seen the negative side of asking yet. Not
No,
once.
no. And I think part of asking is knowing what you're asking for, right? And you
Mhm.
kind of mentioned that part earlier. I know
Yeah.
one thing that we learned as we were going through and building School Assist was that a lot of instructors didn't even know what to ask for, right? So we kind of had to train them on, go through your day-to-day life. What are things that you wish you had? So you actually know that you have a wish list, and then you have some of those lists are, we've got a lot of schools with, especially high schools, budgetary constraints. Teachers are paying for consumables like brake cleaner or something like that out of their own pocket, and you're like, that should never happen. Like we as an industry should never allow that to happen. Like how easy is it for an instructor to put out there that we need, name whatever consumables, like sandpaper, for example, like anything that, and our friends at Creft do a phenomenal job at getting donations out to a lot of the collision programs. I just look at even that part. If you're an instructor that's out there that's like, hey, I don't feel comfortable asking for this stuff, try to get comfortable asking, because that is going to be something that will have a really big impact on your program. And I think you'll be surprised at how open industry is to helping out.
Right. We get old equipment that works wonderfully. We had an STRSW donated just a year or two ago from a wonderful industry partner of ours. Um, we it's not just always monetary, right?
Right.
It can be equipment. We had tools donated from companies, and those are so important for student learning too. So I mean, and sometimes we don't even ask. I think they're like offering to help. And so when I think you get this good industry relationship, that networking, you got to go out and talk to people. And if you're doing for them and they're doing for you, they come in, I mean, and just help. So,
How do you see, this is kind of more of a forward uh looking question. You mentioned getting some of the ADOS tooling in. There's a pretty big change and a big shift in technology in our industry, kind of this evolution that's happening right now. How do you keep up with that? Because you talked about like those are complex systems. There's a lot of technology in vehicles now, and even if you were in a shop 5 years ago, every single day, things have evolved so much as a teacher that are hard to see when you're not in a shop every day. How do you understand that and really kind of keep up with the changes? I know iCar does a lot of great stuff to help schools out there as well, but just give me a little bit of your senses of like, does it get overwhelming at times with the kind of upgrades, or is it something that you really look forward to?
I look forward to it. One of my homeworks is actually having the students research some topics that I see changing so that I can keep myself up. So I'm like, I don't want to read a novel. I want everybody to just give me like find this topic. And like right now one of my assignments for this semester is plastic repair. Like I want you to find out the future of plastic repair because there's not a lot of it out there. And I go, I think eventually, and it's just a personal think that eventually that is going to shift back into more repairs because we're throwing so much away. And I think that our upcoming generations are caring more about how much we are throwing away. And so I want to see where that is moving. And so if I have them research something on the future of plastics that they find interesting, cite their source, I just want a paragraph or two, and then I'm getting that information from them. They have to go out and find it. I can read about it. And if I find something that I need to dig deeper in, they've cited their source for me. We also have MTTA, which I mentioned earlier. We have to keep our trainings up to date as teachers. So we go to this retreat every summer, and I'm actually the auto body liaison because I I don't want to put down the person that was doing it before because he's a great person, but I was finding myself going, God, I don't want to learn any of this.
Yeah.
It's not what my needs are. So now if my needs aren't met at this training, it's my own fault. So I can go out and go, what do I want to learn? Do I want to learn ADOS? Let's get an ADOS training up at our retreat so that all of the other instructors can kind of pick through and go, this is what I want to learn. Because in the past couple of years, there's only been like a handful of auto body stuff, but this year I plan to like load us up where it's not you have to go to this one because that's auto body. I want people to go, oh, I don't need paint training, but I do want this ADOS, or I do want to see what 3M is doing, or all of anything. I want to get as many different kind of vendors in there as I can possibly. They'll allow me.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't hurt to have 3M in your backyard either. That's
No, they're great.
great company. Great
Yeah.
company. All right. Last question, school related, and then we'll have our quick hitting questions. What changes have you seen in students over the years? Have you seen any type of changes? And I know that's a very all encompassing type of question, but I am curious. Have you seen any changes in behaviors and learning styles and anything over your time at the school?
Oh, over my whole 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not been a lot. I can't say there's been a lot of change for me, but going from training in body shops to training with students, the learning styles I see are the learning styles had been of the older generations, my generation's older, and then training these newer generations of people. It is a lot more play-based than in shops. There's a lot of emotions right now. I see a lot of he hurt my feelings or she hurt my feelings, where we have to be like, all right, we have a therapist for that. I'm not great with feelings, so we'll like move them into that side of it. Or I would say I would say the feelings are a big part of what we're doing. So I'm having to train with that in mind, that students are more willing to talk about how they feel in the situations I'm putting them in, where they'll say, "You're making me uncomfortable," because they have to learn a new skill. And I'll be like, "Okay," because they don't feel like they're doing good, right? And so we have to go, "You're doing great," or "You're doing okay. Let's keep moving forward." So I'm kind of fighting with how their mental dilemmas with themselves and how they feel they're doing.
That's great feedback, because I do get that same feedback from shops as well, that they feel like they kind of have to dance around feelings a lot of times. And especially with young people, I think at times they'll almost put it in like that entitled bucket, but it shouldn't be in the entitled bucket. Like it's more, that's how they were taught to communicate. That's how they were raised. And it is different than maybe the way we were raised, but being able to have some adaptability as a leader, I think, is really important for you shops that are out there, and maybe adjusting your style a little bit and how you manage these folks. And I hear it all the time. Like they all want a pat on the back. They all want a pat on the back. Well, if we're being honest, I'm guessing that 60-year-old tech that's in the shop might like an occasional pat on the back, even if they won't tell you that. So maybe just try to give some feedback, so they don't have to assume how they're doing.
Right. The the feelings thing, I think we all had them. It's just how that they're communicating them a little differently. So it's like, I feel I'm not doing good. I feel like I'm failing. And so that's they're actually giving us more information that way, where we can say, okay, why do you feel like you're failing and where are you struggling? Where maybe some of us, like even my generation, if I was failing, I'd be like, well, I'm figuring it out on my own. I think they're actually communicating where they feel their shortcomings are. And we just have to listen to that. They're not saying that they're having these big feelings. It's, I'm struggling here. And they were just taught to communicate, I feel this, instead of saying, I'm not getting it.
Yeah. The way I was raised in a shop was take all those feelings and bottle them up and just shove them down. And
Never let them
it,
see you cry.
it has changed a lot, but that I feel sentence, I know, has been taught to a lot of young people, and you see it in young professionals. So I totally get that. I think that's really good advice for shops that are out there, to understand that there are generational gaps. There always have been. That will never change in the history of the world. Like there's always going to be a difference between somebody that's been in the industry for 40 years and somebody that's just coming in. It's just the way it is. Like we've got to figure out ways to adapt, and we can't always expect the young person to adapt totally to our style. Try to meet in the middle somewhere.
Oh, they won't adapt. It's, I find myself going, what does that mean? They'll use slang that I've never heard before, and every single year there's a new one. And I'll be like, can
Who's in charge of that? Like some random person that comes up with it. And I'm sure TikTok has something to do with it. TikTok
sure.
is driving some of it. Yeah.
Oh, but it's really fun to throw those slangs back at them. And I'll be like, I have one young lady, and she's in our second year now, and she said fire a lot. So I'd always end it with fire, and she'd just shake her head at me. And I've had people, that doesn't sound right coming from you. And I go, oh, I know, I'm gonna keep doing it though.
I love your approach in general. All right. So I've got some fun questions for us to end the podcast with. First one is, what was your first car?
So a little Plymouth Acclaim that was, I don't remember, I think maybe given to me by my grandparents.
All
My
right.
most impressive car. I don't
It was a
even
hot
know.
rod.
Yeah, I don't even know if students know what Plymouth is anymore.
They probably wouldn't have no clue. Wouldn't have any clue. I never thought about that until right now. What time do you get up in the morning?
Uh, butt crack of those kids waking me up. I don't even have an alarm clock. It can vary from day to day. From I think this morning was 4:30.
Nice. On a snow
And
day. Or
yeah,
we call it snow day, but a cold day.
and it was the whisper in my ear, "Mommy, I didn't even wet my bed." Okay.
Every parent that's out there understands what you're saying right there. Yes, that is that. Oh, that is great. All right. Favorite type of food?
Anything spicy.
Ooh, same.
Yep, it turns out I do like a little pizza with my sriracha.
All right. Quick story. I had tacos the other night, and my father-in-law had bought some hot sauce and brought it down. And it was one of those where I tried to put some dots on it, and it just flowed out, like completely, like covered the taco with this super hot sauce. And so rather than just start over with another taco, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm eating it. I am sweating. I can't, like, my nose is running, like everything's going on. And I know my family was looking at me like, you're a mess. Like, what do you got going on there? I'm like, I'm powering through this taco. And then I liked it so much, I did another one with the same thing. It was like, why would you put yourself through that torture? I don't know. It's something amazing.
Yeah, I go to Buffalo Wild Wings every now and then, and I get the blazing because
You do.
yeah, I love it. And I'll be sitting there at the bar, and people will be looking, and my husband and the bartender will be like, she's fine," because I'll be eating and going, "Oh!" and it just, and at the end of it, I'll be like, "I'm having so much fun."
As your eyes are watering. Yeah.
I've
I've
looked
been
at
there.
my husband and been like, what did you say? I blacked out there for a second. It was really hot, but whoa, it was fun."
Well, this conversation has been fun. You were an absolute blast to talk to. I know the kids just have to adore you, and this is such a cool conversation. The school itself, amazing school here in the Midwest, and just hope we get to do this again, because I just had an absolute blast this last hour.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
Good. So you'll come back on again at some point in the future?
Only if you invite me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. I guarantee it. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. Absolute pleasure. And look forward to seeing everything you're going to do at the school.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you like this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team. WrenchWay is dedicated to promoting and improving careers in the automotive, diesel, and collision industries. In partnership with ASE, we run the ASE Connects community, which empowers shops and dealerships with reliable data, school connections, and industry insights, while helping grow the future technician workforce. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.